Welcome back to the channel everyone. Today we're going to explore a shocking discovery found under the old floorboards of Frank Fritz's house when the FBI conducted an investigation at his mansion. What they found left everyone is shocked. Tune in to learn more about this startling event. In today's film, we'll disclose a startling finding made beneath Frank Fritz's mansion's ancient floorboards. When the FBI conducted a search, they found something that left everyone stunned and kept looking for. Remember to turn on the notification bell, like, and subscribe so you don't miss any fascinating videos that are coming soon. If you think this video is interesting, share it and share your thoughts. A medical report's comments below showed that because Fritz had been purposefully poisoned and had a lethal amount of narcotics in his system, authorities detained Wolf for killing someone, thinking it was intentional rather than an accident, and poisoning A. It's unthinkable that a former collaborator would have fully trusted him. And some even refer to it as a cruel conduct, which shocked people not just in the community of American Pickers fans, as well as in the entertainment sector, where TV celebrities' relationships are frequently regarded as unbreakable, but many fans believe that the conflict between the two was only a This incident went well beyond what was expected as a publicity gimmick to increase ratings, putting Wolf on murder charges motivated by retaliation and greed. But at the beginning, some social media posts claimed that Wolf was initially charged less while. Despite the fact that there was already substantial evidence against Wolf, several reports asserted that investigators collected further evidence. Despite the detectives' inability to finish the case file, another post disclosed that Wolf was taken into custody following seeing him at Fritz's house the night of the event, according to a member of the American Picker production team, led to authorities to broaden their inquiry and look for additional important hints. Following that, the Iowa State Police conducted a comprehensive investigation and found startling evidence, such as Wolf's. Fritz was charged with first-degree murder after receiving suspicious communications and fingerprints on drug bottles. These revelations further complicated the investigation by raising questions about whether this was an accidental fatality or a planned act. The police also discovered additional odd evidence from a 911 call to information about Fritz's last days. That Wolf might have played a role. Frank Fritz's death investigation started after the forensic pathologist discovered anomalies in the. According to the toxicology report, the first cause of death was complications from a stroke, but the autopsy showed that Fritz's drug levels were dangerously elevated, significantly higher than the prescription medication for his illness, which sparked questions right away, particularly upon discovering that Fritz had been diligently adhering to his rehabilitation regimen. Forensic specialists declared that the medication Fritz's body had amounts over the recommended thresholds, which suggested outside intervention. The people who had been with Fritz in his last hours became the target of a covert police inquiry. Even seasoned detectives were astonished by what they found in Fritz's surveillance cameras. Wolf's car was spotted in the area at Fritz's house late at night, around 3 hours before the emergency services arrived. Wolf made the 911 call that evening, saying he had dropped by to see how Fritz was discovered unconscious by his old acquaintance, which prompted investigators to look into the matter. To revisit Wolf and Fritz's relationship's whole history throughout the. When medical professionals came years later, they discovered Fritz comatose and without a pulse. Attempts to resuscitate him were unsuccessful. He was declared dead at the spot. The first report said that a prior stroke was the cause of death, however when toxicological results revealed a different picture, detectives began to suspect Wolf's participation in covert reasons for his longtime friend's passing. Instead, Wolf's actions just after Fritz's death raised suspicions among investigators. As anticipated, he promptly took over Fritz's collection and intellectual property rights within 48 hours, Wolf had spoken with Fritz's attorney about using Fritz's name and Especially for goods pertaining to American pickers, this action increased skepticism regarding Wolf's intentions. Members of the production team also attested to the fact that Wolf was acting as though he had planned it all along. Aimed to gain rapid access to Fritz's priceless antique collection, which several staff members had never seen on the show. Members claimed that despite the recent loss of his loved ones, Wolf appeared too preoccupied with business and showed no signs of sadness. Longtime friend, please remember to hit like and subscribe if you find this tale appealing. Channel, then tell your friends about this video so that we can all discover these amazing secrets and ensure that you. To ensure you don't miss the next video, switch on alerts. When officers examined Wolf's house and workplace, they found a hidden safe with several. Later, unmarked medicine bottles were discovered to have the same kind of drugs that Fritz had in his system, which further fueled suspicions of a premeditated act, but the most noteworthy discovery was a journal found in Wolf's luggage. Many of the items in his journal, some of which were dated years ago, discussed his mounting animosity for Fritz. However, one entry published in a matter of weeks used worse language. Read, F believes he can return and reclaim half the glory, prior to Fritz's passing. He has turned into a burden and forgets that there wouldn't be a show without me. The only way to preserve what I've created is what the network is showing me. During the 6-week trial, Wolf sat quietly and with uncanny composure beside his attorney as the prosecution demonstrated how he had painstakingly plotted Fritz's murder. That during his internet research, Wolf looked for poisons that were invisible and methods to make a murder appear to be a natural death. Questions about history included, how to make a death, and, can stroke drug interactions be detected after death? Appear to be stroke complications? These inquiries were not coincidental and unmistakably indicated a well thought out and prepared. Wolf had used Fritz's prior medical condition as the ideal cover for his strategy, according to the prosecutors. Members of the production crew for a murder testified regarding the unsettling shifts in Wolf and Fritz's relationship in the. A production assistant remembered hearing intense arguments in the years before Fritz left the program and died. Disagreements on the show's future course, in which Wolf demands complete creative control and informs Frank that, because of health problems that others highlighted, he had forfeited his right to co-lead. Became more domineering, frequently disparaging Fritz in front of network executives and excluding him from former friends in the vintage. Danielle Colby gave the community's most moving testimony, grudgingly. Cried as she described a confrontation with Wolf regarding how he had sided with the prosecution. Treated Fritz, I observed that Mike seems fixated with becoming the only spokesperson for. When I asked American Pickers if he planned to make amends, she testified. Mike got defensive and irate with Frank, telling me, don't meddle in issues that don't affect you. Colby added that she had noticed alarming notes in Wolf's workspace. Wolf said he was merely worried about Frank's health when she questioned him about Fritz's medication schedule. These specifics made the long-standing tensions and disputes between the two even more clear. During this time, the defense team attempted to explain Wolf and Fritz's relationship as a misinterpreted friendship. That Wolf had made a sincere effort to make amends with Fritz prior to his passing, they brought network executives to testify who claimed that Wolf had openly backed Fritz's recuperation, but this claim was. Fritz's personal physician vigorously refuted this, claiming that Fritz had been hopeful about his recuperation and was. The doctor, who also verified that he had never administered the kinds of medications, was preparing to create his own antique business. Discovered in Fritz's body in such large quantities, which only strengthened suspicions regarding Wolf's participation during cross-examination. Wolf's composed manner broke down when the prosecutor asked him directly if he had given Fritz Wolf medication, Wolf became irate and yelled, "You don't comprehend everything, you have no idea what it's like to start from beginning and then watch someone else take the credits, grinning in front of the camera as though they were just as crucial to the show's success as I am." The defense team had to ask for a recess due to an outburst, but the harm had already been done, the jurors subsequently said. Believe this was the turning point that caused them to recognize the enduring animosity Wolf still had years after. Fritz departed from the performance. When forensic accountants testified that Wolf had covertly restructured the business, the financial motivation became evident. To assume all intellectual property rights of Fritz prior to his passing. Additionally, he had acquired business insurance in case he died or became unable of working. Approximately $5 million, with prosecutors and Wolf's business as the beneficiaries. Showed that Wolf had transported priceless artifacts and established other shell corporations that Fritz was not aware of. Worth more than $2 million into various organizations, demonstrating that Wolf had meticulously considered the financial gains he could profit from his longtime friends. Death. The jury returned a guilty conviction in about 4 hours, and the judge. Wolf was given a life sentence without the chance of release, and everything abruptly changed. A tumultuous Wolf who had maintained composure during the trial now got to his feet and yelled, "You don't comprehend," he was. He threatened to ruin everything and the legacy I had established. Knocking over papers and a cup of water over the defense table before sprinting directly for Fritz's family and thrashing. The chamber exploded as he flailed his arms frantically before being held by court security. People scrambled to escape as Wolf escaped the chains and charged once more, this time striking a police officer's shoulder with a vintage cane that had been turned in as evidence. "I'm the creator of American Pickers, and that's what I do," Wolf exclaimed as After being forced to the ground by additional security guards, the judge was removed from the courtroom while Wolf persisted in. Fitch's sister was there, kicking and screaming about betrayal. Had to be dragged out by security at the sentencing when Wolf attempted to rush at her and yelled, "I deserve it all." The most startling moment on my show was when Wolf fixed Danielle Colby with his gaze. Someone yelled, "Tell the truth, tell them what Frank was really," while seated in the gallery. Colby turned away, obviously devastated, as numerous other crew members began sobbing, and the case caused great division within the American Picker family, with some backing Wolf despite the testimony of others who opposed him. According to court documents, Wolf subtly divided the production crew, which led many people to turn against Fritz and causing significant internal disputes over time as security attempted to reclaim control of Wolf. He kept screaming, revealing additional more startling facts. He claimed that I was worthless and that the network wanted him back before he started his own show. Reporters characterized the courtroom setting as bizarre, citing at least 3. Among those hurt was Wolf's defense lawyer, who was hit by a flying water jet. Meanwhile, Wolf screamed about betrayal and his heritage, claiming Fritz, even as he was being carried from the courthouse, had plotted to have him destroyed. Legal experts pointed out that the commotion in the courtroom had harmed Wolf's chances for an appeal that flatly refuted the defense's claim that he was only a miscalculated businessman with no aggressive. Several of Wolf's former co-workers came out in the days after the incident, disclosing unclear features of his persona as Thomas Reynolds, a former American Pickers producer. Remembered that if things didn't go his way, Wolf would frequently lose his temper and become aggressive behind the scenes. Reynolds remarked that he always put on a good front on TV, but when the cameras were off, Wolf could be extremely frightening, particularly among the younger employees. Others recalled how Wolf grew more suspicious, thinking Fritz was planning to make a comeback to television with a competing program. The American Pickers reality TV community has been rocked by this case. The future of the History Channel is uncertain for millions of viewers worldwide. Eliminated every episode that included Wolf and released a statement expressing surprise and since several large sponsors have withdrawn, the show's future is becoming more and more dire. Condolences to the Fritz family. Unclear, the Fritz family has submitted a request to assume management of Frank's intellectual property and antique collection, promising to uphold his legacy and fight the network for supporting Wolf's more out-of-control actions. According to experts, Wolf might have narcissistic personality disorder, which can cause someone to appear. Despite their outward attractiveness and manners, they have a deep-seated grudge toward them. Dr. Robert Keller, a forensic expert, suggested that inside Fritz's exit from the show might have been a serious narcissistic harm. The most horrifying aspect of the trial, according to the psychologist who watched, was how Wolf exploited his using celebrity status to sway public opinion immediately upon Fritz's passing. Wolf revealed on social media, with tears in his eyes, that his friend had passed away due to complications after a stroke, while additionally endorsing a memorial item named Frank. In her concluding remarks, prosecutor Sarah Donovan stated that this is a purposeful deceit and not just a murder case intended for the millions of people who believed in him to be in sorrow with a man who killed his best buddy and made money off of it. In the weeks that followed, Payne investigators found that more than $1 million had been contributed, the majority of which was transferred into accounts that were only accessible by Wolf following Fritz's passing. Fans and spectators were shocked when Mike Wolf started his life in prison and resentment at realizing that the man who was once adored for his love of antiques could actually be the ruthless killer. We invited him into our homes every week, according to Devoted. As an American Pickers supporter, we trusted his grounded personality and his enthusiasm for preservation while being aware that it was all a front. Devastatingly, a number of TV personalities who had accompanied Wolf have separated from some, expressing surprise and requesting that Fritz's memory be respected for the American Picker production crew. This tragedy persisted throughout the trial's testimony. Showed a sharply split team, with some certain of Wolf's guilt and others believing he was innocent. Danielle Colby, the prosecution's witness, has subsequently taken a leave of absence from television, stating that she needs more time to. In a succinct statement, she asked for privacy to heal and think, and she conveyed hope. Hope the tradition of preserving antiques, which once brought them all together, would endure this. As they attempt to deal with the combined shock of losing, other crew members have all but vanished from the public view. Witnessing Wolf's conviction for murder and Frank Fritz's death. Statement made prior to Wolf's outburst in the courtroom now appears to be prophetic. Mr. Wolf, you introduced. While harboring a yearning for vengeance and murder, you used yourself as a protector of history and the preservation of America. Your platform to advocate for traditional values while also planning the demise of the helpful guy. Provide the groundwork for today's justice, which extends beyond Frank Fritz. However, following Wolf's accusation, millions of viewers trusted you. His final public appearance before being led was when he started a dramatic riot across the defense table. Gone to spend the remainder of his life in prison. And the narrative then takes an exciting turn as it shifts to a tiny cemetery in. Frank Fritz was buried at a little cemetery in Iowa that had never seen so many television crews and antique cars parked along its gravel lanes. Fans and interested bystanders gathered behind a hurriedly constructed fence. When a group of professionals got ready to dig Frank Fritz's grave, the American Picker host who died a year ago. Due to land development, this first appeared to be a straightforward relocation, but it soon became a media extravaganza. Nobody could have foreseen the shocking findings that would be made within community and beyond. Fritz's grave relocation choice was created after a development firm purchased the little cemetery with the intention of expanding an adjacent historical museum. Ironically, it was the same type of location that Fritz had previously searched for treasures when he was a picker. Grudgingly consented, asking for privacy while being moved to a bigger cemetery 20 meters away. However, public interest soared after the material was leaked to local media. Exceeded local authorities' expectations and ultimately consented to let some media organizations to shoot, with the money raised from the video being donated to the Crohn's Disease Research Fund. Fritz had fought all of his life, and after giving it some thought, the Fritz family members accepted this choice because they thought Frank, who had always wished to assist people, would probably support it. Frank always wanted to help, but he never wanted to make a big deal out of things, Sister Lisa told the media. People in this way, allowing him to continue doing so. The sky was cold and clear on the day of the move, and the cemetery workers had planned the day before, laying up a route for the tools and erecting obstacles to guarantee the professional team would continue uninterrupted. Dr. Eleanor Chambers, a well-known conservation specialist with extensive knowledge of historical objects, was asked to supervise the procedure and guarantee that everything was carried out with the highest regard for the departed. She revealed, "We are adhering to the same protocols we employ for historical monuments while honoring the desires of the family." What she withheld at the unique manner in which Frank Fritz was interred was a secret until now. A crane raised the granite slab covering the grave around 8:30 a.m. exposing what Mike claims is a specifically created preservation chamber rather than a conventional coffin. Wolf, who had collaborated with Fritz on American Pickers, agreed with Fritz's desires. Frank used to make a joke about wanting his favorite things to be around him when he passed away. Just kidding, but following his stroke in 2022, he made all the necessary preparations and made it explicit in his will that he had a special room intended to protect him and his most valuable possessions. Wolf described how the cemetery's quiet was abruptly broken when the preservation chamber was unlocked by a group of. The casket was surrounded by several chambers that included. Among the most remarkable personal possessions were priceless items that had never been made public. Every item in the Americana collections ever documented was picked with attention by Frank in building a personal museum in his final years that showcased his admiration and respect for American history. Even with her wealth of knowledge, Dr. Chambers was unable to conceal her. "In my 20 years of work, I have never witnessed such emotion, therefore this isn't. It's a very personal selection." History. A 1934 Indian motorcycle in its original condition was one of the most notable artifacts. Disease that had previously belonged to a mail carrier. Fritz from the Midwest had discovered it in a barn in Iowa in 2019, but experts appreciated the bike even though it had never been made public. Cost more than $300,000, but its historical significance was incalculable. Adjacent to it was an ancient wooden box with private correspondence between a young female inventor and Thomas Edison that was thought to have provided concepts for some of Edison's patents that were later validated by researchers. These records as genuine, creating the opportunity to rewrite a portion of American creation. There was a collection of individually made toy automobiles in another section, bearing the name of a youngster who had been a silent volunteer at the Iowa Children's Hospital in Fritz's final years. As a kind of therapy, he had previously established a tiny workshop where he taught the kids how to build vintage automobiles, and he kept